So, I'm not someone who really believes in paranormal stuff. I mean, I watch the occasional horror movie, but I've always been the first one to roll my eyes and say, yeah, right, that would never happen. I still feel that way about most of it. But what happened to me and my best friend, Alex, 2 summers ago changed that a little. We'd both been burnt out from work. He's a software guy. I do design, so we thought it'd be cool to rent a cabin for a few days. Just something quiet, away from the city noise. No Wi-Fi, no deadlines, no constant phone buzzing. Alex found this cabin on some listing site. It wasn't one of those polished vacation rentals with fake fireplaces and fancy beds. It looked older, real wooden panels, a small dock, surrounded by forest, right on the edge of a lake that honestly looked too still. The kind of place where you expect an old fisherman to appear out of the mist. The listing had barely any reviews, just 2. One said beautiful view, but kind of creepy at night, and the other just said peaceful. I remember joking about that in the car, like, bro, peaceful means haunted. We laughed, put on music, and drove the 4 hours out there. When we got there, the air felt weirdly heavy. It wasn't bad, just thick. The cabin itself looked exactly like the pictures. Small, rustic, with a porch that faced the water. There was an old rowboat tied up on the dock, and the lake stretched out endlessly. No houses across the water, no boats, nothing. Just still, dark water, reflecting the tree line like glass. Inside was cozy, but old. The walls were covered with faded wallpaper that probably hadn't been changed in decades. A tiny kitchen, a living room with a fireplace, and 2 small bedrooms. The first thing I noticed, though, was how quiet it was. Not just peaceful quiet. I mean no sound, no wind, no birds, no insects. Even the lake barely rippled. We unpacked, made some instant noodles, and sat on the porch watching the sunset. It was honestly perfect. Orange sky, water turning deep red. The kind of calm you don't get in the city. That night, we had a few beers, played cards, and turned in around midnight. I was half asleep when I heard it. A soft knocking sound. At first, I thought it was just Alex moving around, or maybe a tree branch against the wall. But then I realized it was coming from inside the cabin. 3 short knocks. Then silence. I froze, listening. A few seconds later, 3 more knocks. Slow, steady, like someone tapping their fingernails on wood. I whispered, "Alex, you awake?" But he didn't answer. The sound stopped for maybe a minute, then started again. This time from the wall behind my bed. I got up, turned on the flashlight on my phone, and pressed my ear to the wall. It sounded hollow, like there was space behind it. I called out, "Hey man, are you messing with me?" No response. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, careful ones, like someone trying not to be heard. I opened the door. The hallway was empty. The cabin was dim. Just the moonlight spilling in through the small windows. E went to Alex's room, opened the door, and he was sitting up in bed, wide-eyed. "You heard that too?" he asked. We both just stared at each other for a second. He said it started near his window, then moved down the wall toward my room. We stood there for a while, waiting, but it stopped. After about 20 minutes of silence, we convinced ourselves it was just the wood settling or some small animal inside the wall. We went back to sleep. The next morning, it felt normal again. Sunlight, clear air, the water sparkling like nothing happened. We laughed it off, made coffee, and spent the day fishing. It was nice, peaceful even, but around sunset, the air changed again. That same heavy stillness came back, like the world was holding its breath. We were sitting on the porch when Alex pointed at the water. "Do you see that?" At first, I thought it was just a ripple, but then I saw it something dark, just under the surface, about 10 or 15 feet from the dock. It wasn't a fish. It was bigger, wider, like a shape drifting just below the waterline. We stared at it for maybe 30 seconds before it slowly sank out of view. "Probably a log," Alex said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The knocking came back around 2 a.m. Same rhythm, same place. But this time, I heard it moving from the far corner of the cabin, along the wall, around the hallway, to my room, like it was circling. Alex whispered from his room, "It's moving again, isn't it?" Before I could answer, the knocking stopped. Total silence. Then, from under the floorboards, a low, dragging sound. Something was inside the cabin. I don't even know how to explain the sound. It wasn't like footsteps or scratching. It was slow and uneven, like something heavy being pulled across dirt directly underneath us. Alex whispered, "Do you hear that?" I nodded, but I didn't move. Neither of us did. After maybe a minute, the dragging stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I remember my ears ringing from how quiet it got. Then, 3 knocks again, this time from under the floor. We didn't sleep after that. We just sat there with the lights on until morning. When the sun came up, we went outside to check. The cabin was built on slightly raised ground, so you could see underneath it from the back where the slope dropped. Toward the water, there was only about 2 feet of space under there, mostly dirt, rocks, and old wooden supports. Nothing looked disturbed. I was starting to think the imagined Italiano, but then Alex pointed at something near the edge, right under the porch. There were handprints. Clear, muddy handprints pressed into the dirt. 5 of them. They looked human. The prints were too large and too far apart to belong to an animal, and the fingers dug deep, like whoever made them was crawling. We just stood there staring until Alex finally said, "We're leaving tonight." I agreed instantly, but we didn't leave that day. I know how stupid that sounds, but we'd paid for 3 nights, and it was a long drive back. Plus, once it was daylight again, it was easy to rationalize everything. The prints could have been from some maintenance guy. The noises could have been the old wood shifting. That's how we talked ourselves into staying. We tried to keep the day normal. Fishing, grilling, pretending nothing happened, but I couldn't stop thinking about those handprints. Around 6:00 m, as the light started fading, Alex went inside to grab something. I stayed out on the dock, looking across the lake. The water was so still it looked fake, like glass. Then, in the corner of my eye, I saw ripples spreading outward, slow and wide like someone had just dropped a stone. I leaned forward, squinting. That's when I saw it again, that same dark shape, floating just beneath the surface. Only this time it wasn't drifting. It was rising. I stepped back, thinking it might be an animal, but the longer I watched, the more wrong it looked. The shape stretched long and thin, almost like an arm. The water broke for just a second, and I swear I saw pale fingers reach up before sinking back down. I yelled for Alex. By the time he came out, the water was calm again. Nothing there. He could tell I wasn't joking. "Pack your stuff," he said. We threw everything into the car in 10 minutes flat. We didn't even care about leaving some of our food behind. We just wanted out. But when I turned the key in the ignition, the car didn't start. Not even a click. We bought Frusi. The battery was dead. I swear it had been fine that morning. Alex tried calling for help, but of course, no signal. We just sat there in the car, watching the last light fade behind the trees. Neither of us wanted to go back inside, but we couldn't sit in the car all night either. So we went back into the cabin, locked the doors, and waited it out. Around 11 p.m., the knocking came back. This time, it didn't move around. It was coming from the back door. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Then silence. We just stared at the door, not even breathing. After maybe a minute, the doorknob started to turn. It didn't rattle. It turned, slowly, like someone was trying not to make noise. Alex grabbed the fireplace poker, and I stood next to him. Heart pounding so hard I could barely hear. The knob kept turning until it hit the latch, then stopped. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps moving away, but not on the floor. On the porch, outside, heavy, dragging steps that went around the side of the cabin, toward the windows. Then something pressed against the glass. I couldn't see it clearly. Light from inside reflected too much. But there was definitely a face, a pale, featureless shape right against the window pane, staying still for several seconds before sliding out of view. Alex whispered, "Tell me you saw that." I nodded, because I had. We stayed awake all night again. No sleep, no talking, just waiting for morning. At first light, we went out to check. The porch was covered in wet prints, not footprints exactly, but smears, like something had been crawling. The water by the dock looked disturbed, small ripples spreading out like something had just gone under again. We spent the next few hours trying to jump the car with a portable starter from the cabinet's shed. It finally worked around noon. We didn't even go back inside to grab our stuff. We just left. I remember looking in the rearview mirror as we drove away. For a split second, I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of the dock, facing the lake. But when I blinked, Te were gone. We drove straight to the nearest gas station about 20 minutes away, and neither of us said a single word the entire time. The silence was heavy, not from shock, but from that weird mix of confusion and fear, when you can't explain what you saw. At the station, the guy working behind the counter noticed how shaken we looked. He asked if everything was okay. Alex told him our car battery had died out by the lake. The guy just froze for a second and said, "You mean the cabin on Black Hollow Lake?" We nodded. He gave this uneasy laugh, like he wanted to play it off but couldn't. "People still stay there?" That threw me off. "What do you mean?" He said the cabin had been empty for years, except for the occasional renters who never lasted more than a couple nights. He didn't elaborate, just muttered something about the lake not liking visitors. We thought he was being dramatic, but when I went to use the bathroom in the back, I passed a bulletin board full of old local newspaper clippings. One headline caught my eye. "Local man found drowned behind lakeside. Cabin no signs of struggle." The date was from 2007. The photos showed the same cabin. The articles said the man, a fisherman named Harold Keene, had been living there alone 4 years after his wife drowned in that same lake. The police ruled his death an accident. He supposedly fell off the dock one night. But what got me was the last line. "It Sayit." Authorities discovered strange claw marks under the cabin, near where the victim's body was found. I just stared at that clipping for a long time. When I came back out, Alex was talking quietly with the cashier, who was telling him that the property had gone through several owners since, but none of them stayed long. He said the locals stopped fishing near that lake altogether. Too many odd noises at night. We ended up booking a cheap motel that night because neither of us could handle driving back in the dark. We sat on the beds, still half wet from sweat and lake humidity, and finally talked about it. Alex admitted something that made my stomach drop. He said that while we were packing to leave the cabin, he went inside the back room to grab his jacket. When he bent down, he saw something under the bed, a small wooden box, nailed shut. He didn't mention it because he didn't want to freak me out even more. I told him he should have left it there, but he looked at me and said quietly, "I didn't. It's in the trunk." I felt sick. We went down to the parking lot, opened the trunk, and there it was, a rough, hand-carved box, maybe a foot long, covered in faded scratches. It smelled faintly of lake water and something metallic. There was no lock, just nails keeping the lid shut. Alex grabbed a screwdriver from the glove compartment and started prying it open. The wood splintered easily. Inside, wrapped in rotted fabric, were 3 things. A small glass jar, half filled with murky water. A photo of a woman standing on the same dock we'd been on, and what looked like a piece of bone. The photo was old, maybe the 80s. But what got me was the background. You could see a faint figure in the lake behind her. Alex dropped the box and backed away. We didn't even take it with us. We just shoved it back in the trunk, closed it, and left it at that motel the next morning. We never went back for it. Over the next few weeks, I tried not to think about it, but I started having these dreams. Always the same. I'm standing on the dock, staring at the lake. It's so still it looks frozen. Then, right before I wake up, I see something rising from the water, reaching toward me. I told myself it was just stress. But then, one night, I got a call from Alex. He sounded weird, distant. He said, "You're gonna think I'm crazy, but I can hear the knocking again." I asked what he meant, and he said it started 2 nights ago. The same 3 knocks, coming from his apartment walls. I told him to get rid of that box, if he still had it. He went quiet for a long time, then said, I left it in the motel room, but I think something followed me anyway. That was the last time I talked to him. A week later, his sister messaged me. She said Alex had been found in his bathtub, drowned. The police said it looked like an accident, slipped and fell. But the part that still keeps me up, when they drained the water, they found handprints on the inside of the tub. It's been almost a year now. I've moved to another city, got a new job, tried to get on with life. But every now and then, late at night, when everything's quiet, I swear I hear it. 3 slow knocks. And sometimes, if I listen close enough, it sounds wet.